Right, so last week we discussed about relevant cost analysis or relevant costing, and we saw the rules that guides us on determination of relevant cost for material and then labor, and then we also solved a question on that area, and then we spent the rest of the time on limiting factor analysis. Under that, we did three things under limiting factor analysis. We looked at limiting factor analysis from the contribution perspective, we looked at it from the throughput angle, and we ended on looking at it from the linear programming perspective. So these are the three schools of thoughts that we discussed under linear programming on limiting factor analysis. So the next thing we want to look at still under our short-term decision making is cost volume analysis, or what we call cost profit volume analysis. Or what we call break-even analysis. So we can call it cost volume analysis, break-even analysis. All of these are their names. Now, what is break-even analysis? In a simple language, we say that break-even analysis is a marginal costing principle that helps companies in determining the interrelationship between cost, volume, and profit. So it is a marginal costing principle that helps to determine what? The interrelationship between cost, volume, and profit. Marginal costing principle meaning contribution is going to be a great key in this place, and variable cost is going to be an idea that we're going to be talking about, and fixed cost will be separately treated in this discussion. So cost volume analysis or break-even analysis is simply a marginal costing principle used to determine the interrelationship between cost, volume, and profit. In other words, we want to find out the cost that we are going to be incurring, and then the units we can produce, and also how much profit we can be making as a company. Now, because this thing is a concept that we are looking at, there are various assumptions that we need to take into consideration. So let's look at the assumptions on cost volume analysis, because in doing the analysis, we will be lying a lot. But to make the lie turn to truth, we need to use assumptions. So let's look at some assumptions that underlie break-even analysis. One, I've already said it. Total cost is divided into its component of fixed and variable. So total cost is divided into fixed cost and variable cost. That is the first assumption. We're going to be assuming that we have fixed cost and variable cost in the total cost. Second, revenue are constant. Revenue and cost, behave in a linear function. Revenue and cost behave in a linear fashion. Revenue and cost behave in a linear fashion. So that is the second assumption. So when we say revenue and cost behave in a linear fashion, what does that mean? Revenue and cost behave in a linear fashion. What does that mean? Any idea?
What it means is that as revenue is going up, we believe that cost also goes up.
Cost also goes up, which means that at the end of the day, meaning that as revenue per unit is going up, our cost per unit will be going up, because you can only sell more when you produce more. So when you are producing more, your cost will be increasing in that effect. 3, selling price is constant. That is a lie in reality, but this is an assumption we're going to take under break-even analysis. Selling price is constant. Next, The only factor influencing cost and revenue is production output. The only factor influencing cost and revenue is production output. The only factor influencing cost and revenue is production output. Next, so these are some of the assumptions that we are going to be looking at. Another assumption we can say is that the efficiency and effectiveness of machine and labor is also constant. So there is no change in the material machine, there is no change in labor, the efficiency is also constant. That's also another assumption. So break-even analysis is a marginal costing principle used to determine the relationship between cost, volume, and profit. In order to do that relationship, or to determine the relationship, we must take certain assumptions into consideration. And cost is going to be separated into a fixed and variable components, and then the other factors that we talked about. So let's begin the journey to define some terminologies under break-even analysis. And as we are defining terminologies, we have actually begun the journey on break-even analysis. The first one is, which is common, and we've spoken about it already, is contribution. What is contribution? If you remember, throughout this course, we've been hammering on contribution almost in any topic we've covered. What's contribution?
Selling price minus variable.
That's correct. So contribution is the difference between your selling price minus variable cost. Please note that at this level, we can have total contribution which is going to be your total, your sales revenue minus what? Total variable cost. Then we can have cont per unit, which is selling price per unit minus variable cost per unit. So it could be total contribution or it could be contribution per unit. The same idea. The same idea. Second terminology, contribution to sales ratio. Now here you're going to listen to the name, then you answer the question. Contribution to sales ratio. When we say contribution to sales, what comes to mind? Contribution to sales. What comes to mind?
Contribution on sales. Contribution divided by sales.
Contribution divided by sales. That's correct. So contribution to sales, which is sometimes also called contribution volume ratio. So let me give you the other name as well. Contribution volume ratio is calculated as, so CS ratio is your contribution divided by sales times 100%. Contribution divided by sales. So it's the ratio of contribution to the sales of the organization. Third, VC to sales ratio. So variable cost to sales ratio. Variable cost to sales ratio. Now this simply has to do with the portion of sales that covers the variable cost. So VC to sales ratio will be your variable cost divided by sales times 100. Looking at the portion of the sales that can cover your variable cost, thereby determining whether you have a positive contribution or a negative contribution. So contribution to sales ratio, and then variable cost to sales ratio. Next one, break-even point. Now, I hope you've heard this word all over again. So when we say a company has break-even, what does it mean?
The company making profit or loss.
The company is
It's not making profit.
it's not making any profit or loss. Right. So the break-even point is the point at which total sales is the same as what? Total cost. So the company is not making profit, the company is not making loss. Now, in break-even, there are some aspects we need to take into consideration. First, there is no profit or loss. So the company is not making any profits, neither is it making losses. 2, total revenue is the same as the total cost of the company. And then 3, contribution is the same as fixed cost. So these are some characteristics that a company experiences when it has break-even. When it's breaking even. So no profit or loss, total revenue is the same as total cost, contribution is the same as the fixed cost. So the terminologies, first, contribution, selling price minus variable cost. Contribution to sales ratio, contribution over sales times 100. We here farmer or example into a babadi. Variable cost to sales ratio, variable cost over sales times 100. 4, break-even point. Now, when it comes to the break-even point, we can calculate the break-even point in units and break-even point in value. So, break-even point first, BEP in units. Break-even point in units is simply equal to the fixed cost divided by contribution per unit. Fixed cost divided by contribution per unit. That's break-even point in units. Then his brother, break-even point in value. Now, what is break-even point in units? What is break-even point in units?
The number of units
Produced at the break-even point. Are you getting the idea? The number of units produced at the break-even point. So, how many units must we produce so that we won't make profit, neither will we make loss? How many units must we produce so that our total revenue will be the same as our total cost? How many units of the products must we produce so that our contribution will be fixed cost? That is the break-even point in units. Then we need to get the break-even point in value. The break-even point in value is simply the revenue we will be getting or the sales we will be getting at the break-even point. Hence, it is the fixed cost divided by cost per unit times the selling price per unit. So, the value or the sales we are going to be getting at the break-even point. So, if we produce 2,000 units, and when we produce 2,000 units, we will make profit, we will make loss. Then, what is the value of that 2,000 units? That's why we multiply it by what? The selling price per unit. So that is break-even point in value. Now, there is another way that the break-even point in value can be calculated. So this is where there is a measure. So break-even point in value could also be calculated using the second formula, which is fixed cost divided by contribution to sales ratio. Fixed cost divided by contribution to sales ratio. Meaning the examiner can play on our intelligence by giving us contribution to sales ratio and some other preambles in the question. Then he will ask us to calculate break-even points. And I'm going to come from there in a moment. So that is the first form. Next. The next terminology to define is MOS, margin of safety. Margin of safety. Now, before I go, any questions in this place? Remember where Babadi, as I've told you, no formula. This is not like FM that will give you some formulas. No formula sheets. Pure concepts. So let's go to margin of safety. The margin of safety is simply the difference between the maximum output and the break-even point. That's the margin of safety. The difference between the maximum output and the break-even point. In other words, the margin of safety is the point at which the company begins to make profit. So that is the idea about margin of safety. In a simple language, margin of safety in units can be calculated as, so MOS units can be calculated as maximum output minus break-even point in units. Very important. The maximum output minus the break-even point in units. Then another way the margin of safety could be calculated in units is the maximum profit divided by contribution per unit. Maximum profit divided by the contribution per unit. Then margin of safety in value can also be calculated as maximum revenue minus break-even point in value. Maximum revenue minus break-even point in value. Or could be calculated as MOS in value as maximum profit divided by cont per unit times selling price per unit. So these are how margin of safety are calculated. These are the various ways that margin of safety can be calculated. So what are we saying? The margin of safety is the point at which the company begins to make profit. Now, if we should represent this on a diagram, it could look something like this. This is the fixed cost curve. This is the revenue curve. And this is the total cost curve. Fixed cost. This is going to be your revenue curve, because revenue starts from 0, and this is going to be a variable cost curve. So at the end of the day, this is going to be your BEP, break-even point. Now, we're going to be putting value here, and we're going to be putting units here. So when we trace this down, this is going to be break-even point in what? Units. Then when we trace this down, we'll get break-even point in value. Now, as far as we are concerned here, you are going to be making losses. But when you get to this point, you have break-even. From this point, you begin to what? Make profits. So any area outside this is what refers to as what? The margin of safety. So if the company produces a maximum unit of say 3,000 units, and our break-even point, the units we need to produce in order that we will make loss, we will make profit, is say 2,500, then the margin of safety becomes what? 500 units. Then the value will also be calculated. So this is the diagram that represents the concepts that we are establishing here. So as far as we are producing, till this point we are making losses. At this point, total cost, TC, is meeting your TR, total revenue. So when total cost is equal to total revenue, we say the company has break-even. And from there, profit is made by the company. Any question, please? Finally, now, who can tell us, before I go there, who can tell us the importance of what we are doing? Why do you think it should be part of the decision-making scheme of a company to calculate break-even point, to calculate margin of safety, to calculate contribution to sales ratio? Why should it be part of the decision-making?
Know the quantity to produce to achieve a certain profit or a desired profit.
Okay, so to know the quantity to produce to achieve a desired profit. Okay, what else?
Basically, to know whether the venture is a new product we are trying to develop, to know whether it's feasible.
It's feasible. Okay. Okay, so
In the sense that if you look at the quantity or the value, the loan at which you break even,
yeah.
the price there can put the market off.
Yes.
So it will tell you whether the new product you are bringing will be competitive.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So that is also another thing that helps us to do. What else? What other thing? So it helps us to determine the unit to produce to maximize profit. It helps us to make decisions about the products we are producing, whether it's going to be competitive or not competitive, and the units we need to produce at that level. Then what else? It's going to guide us in order to determine the units we need to produce in order to make profit as a company. Because as far as we are producing anything below 2,500 for my illustration, what are we making? Loss. So if we want to start making profit, then we need to produce more than 2,500. But you cannot just get up and say, I'm producing 2,500. You should have had, or you should have what? Done the break-even analysis and determine that output level. So that is the importance of how this thing is done to guide the companies. The final terminology is target profit. And that is what Aubrey Bond spoke about, that the units to produce for a target profit. That's the last concept, target profit. Should that be number 6? I don't know if I was numbering before. Should that be number 6? Number 8? Really?
And there was 1.2. The break-even analysis is used to set prices, selling prices.
Set selling prices, yes, because when we do the analysis and realize that it's not going to help us more, then we can use it, or it can guide us in the setting of what? New selling prices, so that we can achieve our objective. Yes, it's done that way. Target profit. This is Aubrey Bond's point. So, target profit has to do with the units to produce in order to what? Make a target profit. So it's like target costing. If you remember what we did under target costing. You determine your target profit, and then you come and calculate the actual cost. Then you get a target now. But here, you have determined the target profit. Say you want to make $20 or $20,000. The question is, how many units must you produce in order to make the $20,000? That is the idea about target profit. So what is target profit? We will have units to produce for a target profit. So if we want to calculate the unit to produce for a target profit, we bring fixed cost plus target profit divided by contribution per unit. Fixed cost plus target profit divided by contribution per unit. Then we need to get the total revenue at the target profit. In other words, how much revenue must we make in order to get this target profit? So value of units at the target profit. And that is fixed cost plus target profit TP over cont per unit times the selling price per unit. So these are the ideas, concepts, principles that guides us in the making of a decision. So this will give us the value in units. This will give us the value in currency. Okay, so these are all that you need to know. Now, I'm going to bring a question up, and it's going to be a guinea pig question that we're going to use as a benchmark to guide us in solving all of these questions. Then we will go to the question that you have in your paper that I gave you last week, and then we will solve the question there. Because the examiner is not going to be cheap. Like, just calculate these things for one product. He can do that, but sometimes a company produces more than one product. In that case, we are going to be calculating what we call the weighted average contribution to sales ratio. And so that is what we're going to be doing in that question. But for now, let me bring a question up for us to look at. So Ken PLC has the following information: contribution to sales ratio 25%, fixed cost 20,000, selling price per unit 3.5, total output 15,000 units, target profit 32,000. What's the requirement? We are doing everything from here. What can we do first? So you're going to direct me for me to work. So Ken PLC, put the name of the question, the name of the business down. What can we do first? We can solve the break-evens. Okay. So in solving the break-evens, so first, break-even point in units. What's our formula? Fixed cost over count per unit. What's the fixed cost? $20,000. What's the contribution per unit? We don't know that. It is not there. So how do we find it? How can we find contribution per unit? Think.
Is it the contribution ratio times the total output?
Contribution sales ratio times the total output will give us contribution per unit. Voting. How many of you support the motion? You support the motion. Okay. Who else supports the motion? So what you mean is that 25% of 15,000 units will give us the contribution per unit. That's what you're saying. Let's do 25% of 15,000. What do we have? Say a bomba. Okay,
look,
what's the scenario?
fixed cost plus profits will give you.
Why is profit? Fixed cost plus profit will give us what?
Contribution.
Okay.
Total contribution.
Okay.
Then you divide by the total output to get the contribution per unit.
Okay. Do you get that concept? Now, profit, if you remember marginal costing principle, equals count minus fixed cost, isn't it? So if this is a concept, then how do we get count? Count is going to be profit plus a fixed cost into the okano and the correct. Now that is one way of the equation. I'm going to do the various ways available, so in the exam you're not handicapped. You got to understand that this is our target profit, so that's going to be 32,000. Fixed cost of 20,000. What do we have? 52,000, isn't it? But we are looking for count per unit. So we divide that by the what? Total output of 15,000. What do we have? What kind of presentation am I doing, Basala? What's your name?
3.47.
3.47. So this is your contribution per unit from here. Now remember what we said. Note. Contribution to sales ratio is equal to what? Contribution per unit divided by selling price per unit times what? 100. Watch it closely. The contribution to sales ratio on the amount 25%. You're looking for contribution per unit into over the selling price has been given us 3.5 times 100%. So if we are making the counts per unit the subject, counts per unit will be equal to 3.5 times 25% divided by 100%. Sounds good? What do we have? What?
0.875.
Confirm. Confirm. And then perform to me punch at the end. Punch at you. The man blow my stomach. Is it like that? 0.0088 to 180. Why is it not the same? It is supposed to be the same. Why is it not the same? Because this here is not the actual profit of the company. It is the target profit. So you cannot apply that in this scenario. It is this one that you can apply in this scenario. So get a concept of what he said is true, but it is target profit, not total profit. Assuming that the question was total profit, then what we have done would have been correct. But this is a target profit, so it is not right. So now we have counts per unit as 0.08. Let me soup up my question. You already have that there. So BEP per unit will be equal to what? What was our first cost? 20,000 divided by 0.875. What do I have? Please. So that we move faster. $22,857 units. What was the maximum unit in the question that I gave? 15,000. Change it to 37,500.
Total out.
The total output. Change it to 37,500. This is an off-kind question, so we need to make sure it's within the scope. Nice. Then we can get, so that's the first thing, BEP in units. Second, BEP in what? Value. What is the formula? Fixed cost over cost per unit times selling price. Now, I will repeat the wheel. So I just pick this figure here. 22,857 units times what's our selling price per unit? 3.5. What do we have? $80,000. So we have the break-even point in units. We have the break-even point in value. What else can we calculate? III.
Margin of safety.
What?
Margin of safety.
Margin of safety. Okay. So margin of safety, I think we can calculate in units. Were we giving total revenue in the question? Okay, so that means margin of safety we can only calculate in units. So margin of safety in units, what do we have? The formula is what? Maximum output minus A by Z, break-even point in units. So what's our maximum output? I asked you to change it to 37,500 minus the break-even point in units, 22,857. So what do we have? $14,643. So that's what was the second formula on margin of safety in value? Because I gave you two formulas for margin of safety in value. The second formula, it was maximum profit divided by what? Contribution per unit. No, not margin of safety in unit. Margin of safety in value. Maximum profit over contribution to sales ratio. Do you have that? So we can use that formula to calculate the MOS in value. How do we do that? So stay with me here carefully. Now, you know that we could also calculate the margin of safety in value using the second formula I gave you. What was the second formula in margin of safety in value that I gave you?
Maximum profit over cost per unit times.
Are you sure? Break-even point in value, the other formula. I gave you two formulas. Fixed cost divided by
Contribution.
cost per unit, right?
Yes.
Nice. So what's the fixed cost? It's still 20,000. Then cost per unit is what? Hey, contribution to sales ratio rather. Anna.
Yeah.
Are you getting it? The second formula for BEP in value. So what's the contribution to sales ratio? 25%. So give me an answer. $20,000 over 25%. 80,000. You see it? You see it? They say. So whichever formula you use, you're supposed to get the same answer. That's what you gotta understand. Now, if we want to calculate MOS in value, please stay with me here carefully. We said that it should be maximum profit divided by F. Maximum profit
Divided by cost per unit.
Times selling price per unit.
cost per unit
Times selling price.
times selling price per unit. Now look at it carefully. How do we get the maximum profit? How do we get the maximum profit? Yeah? By finding, yeah, we are finding margin of safety value. And our formula is maximum profit over cost per unit times selling price. So how do we find maximum profit? Do you understand the question?
Yes.
Are you sure you all understand the question? Or Brepon, you understand the question?
Yes.
Do you understand the question? Okay. So how do we find maximum profit then?
Profit per unit times
Profit per unit times the volume. So how do we get a profit per unit? So maximum profit will be maximum revenue minus what? Maximum total cost. So let's go. How do we get maximum revenue? The selling price per unit was 3.5, isn't it? Times, what was the maximum unit? I think we have it there, 37,500. How do we get a maximum total cost? Remember, total cost is made up of what? Fixed and variable. So, we have the fixed component as $20,000. How do we get a variable component? Mishadana may for a question way because it will unveil everything unveilable. Then you know you understand the concept of
The fixed one and the total.
Oh what? Now variable cost no way. Shim. How do we get variable cost?
Total cost is first cost.
The total one.
Where is the total cost? Do we have total cost in the question? We don't have total cost. So how do we find variable cost? Come on, think.
Cost.
We now have contribution, isn't it? Isn't it? And don't we have selling price?
Contribution.
So we can find variable cost. So look at it. Cont equals selling price minus variable cost. You've calculated cont as 0.875. Selling price has been given as 3.5. And then as a VC. So now when I'm making VC the subject, what do? VC equals 3.5 minus what? 0.875. Can I have an answer? $2.625. So that's variable cost per what? Unit. But we need total variable cost here. So what's the total variable cost? This, your figure, 3.625 times the 37. 2 points, thank you. Times 37,500. What do we have? To get a total variable cost.
98,438.
Confirm.
Yeah.
So now that we have the total variable cost, we can add it to where? The fixed cost. So 20,000 plus 98,438. So give me answers. This times this.
First one is 131,250.
131,250 minus this plus this.
118,000.
118,438.
Yeah.
Let's subtract. Get a maximum profit. $12,812. Good. Now, we have the maximum profit. Until we can go back and go and calculate what? The margin of safety in value. I hope you are getting the build up. In the exam mode, the question will not be direct. Now pick it. He is going to take you back and you will have to find your way forward and go back again. That's why I put the question up. Because I know that things will not be inside. But whilst we are calculating, we need to find the things along the way. So, I hope you are done with this side. Everybody done with this side? Everyone done with this side? So now stay with me on MOS in value. So margin of safety in value.
I thought that was
Hey, madam, Where maximum profit now, the numerator. So we have not calculated margin of safety in value. We were doing workings. So MOS in value, what's our maximum profit there? What's our maximum profit?
Our maximum is 12,812.
812. Divided by count per unit. What was our count per unit?
875.
0.875 times the selling price of
3.5.
Go for it. Give me an answer. Five one. Good. That's it. That's it. So make sure you understand this very well. What else can we calculate? Sales unit for targeted profit, isn't it? Can do that. Sales unit for target profit. What's the formula? Fixed cost
Plus targeted profits.
over.
CP.
Okay. So what's our fixed cost? 20,000. What's our target profit?
2,000.
Count per unit? 0.875. Can I have an answer?
$59428.57.
59428.57. Let's run it out. 59429 units. Sounds good. Then last one, VIN. Sales value for our targeted profit. What's our formula? Fixed cost plus target profit, count per unit times what? Selling price. Is that a formula?
Yes.
This and this has been calculated already. So 59429 units times what's our selling price? 3.5. So let's multiply up.
$208,001. 208,001.
Be like this? Be like this?
Yes.
Good. There you go. So these are what you have to understand about calculation of break-even analysis. So put it down and then let's look at a question you have in your book there. When we are producing 2 or more products, how do we calculate it?